The Autobiography of Benjamin Franklin by Benjamin Franklin. Picture this. A 17-year-old kid stumbles into a strange city, completely alone. His clothes are filthy from days of travel, his pockets stuffed with spare shirts and socks, and his entire fortune amounts to $1 Dutch and a handful of copper coins. Starving and exhausted, he wanders into a bakery and, having no clue about the local currency, asks for 3 pennies worth of bread. The baker piles 3 massive, puffy rolls into his arms. Confused by the sheer amount of bread, and with 0 pocket space left, he tucks a roll under each arm and starts chomping on the third while strolling down the main street, looking absolutely ridiculous. A young woman watching from her doorway catches sight of this awkward spectacle and bursts out laughing. She has absolutely no idea that this disheveled, bread-juggling teenager will eventually become her husband, and one of the most celebrated figures in world history. That hungry kid was Benjamin Franklin, and the book we're diving into today isn't just his life story. It's one of the most powerful guides to self-creation ever written. This isn't some dusty history lesson. It's a practical manual on building an extraordinary life from nothing. How does the youngest son of a candle maker, with barely 2 years of school, transform himself into a brilliant writer, world-famous scientist, clever inventor, skilled diplomat, and founding father of a nation? The answer lives in these pages. Franklin didn't just stumble through life. He engineered it. He tackled self-improvement with the same curiosity and precision he brought to his scientific experiments. He believed character wasn't something you inherited, but something you could construct, brick by brick, through daily practice. By the end of our journey today, you'll understand the core principles that guided him, the surprisingly simple system he created to master his habits, finances, relationships, and mindset. This isn't about copying a historical figure. It's about discovering that the exact tools Franklin used to shape his destiny are sitting right in front of you, ready to use. This is the ultimate story of how ordinary beginnings can explode into an extraordinary life. So let's jump in. Benjamin Franklin's story doesn't begin with destiny knocking at his door. It starts in a packed house on Milk Street in Boston in 1706. He was the 15th of 17 children, the baby of all the boys. His father, Josiah, made candles and soap, honest, humble work. With that many mouths to feed, extended education was pure fantasy. Young Ben was a reading fanatic from the moment he could remember, and his father briefly considered the church for him. But college was impossibly expensive for their sprawling family, so Ben's formal education ended abruptly at age 10. By 12, he was apprenticed to his older brother James, who ran a printing shop. This became his real education. Working in a print shop gave him access to the thing he craved most: books. He'd borrow books from other apprentices at local bookshops, reading through the night so he could return them spotless by morning. He devoured everything: John Bunyan's Pilgrim's Progress, Plutarch's Lives of the Noble Grecians and Romans, which he later said he read abundantly. But one particular book changed everything. He stumbled across a collection of The Spectator, a popular English publication filled with witty, elegant essays. The writing mesmerized him, and he became obsessed with mastering it himself. His method is a brilliant lesson in deliberate practice. He'd read an essay, jot down brief notes about each sentence's meaning, then set it aside for days. Later, he'd try rewriting the entire essay from memory in his own words, aiming to match the original's clarity and elegance. Afterward, he'd compare his version to the original, spot his mistakes, and fix them. He even converted essays into poetry and back into prose, just to expand his vocabulary and command of language. Think about that for a second. This wasn't homework. Nobody forced him. This was a teenager, working full-time, who had the discipline and vision to create his own curriculum for improvement. He was forging his most powerful weapon, the ability to communicate, persuade, and think clearly on paper. His relationship with James, though, was toxic. James treated him less like a brother and more like property, often harsh and even violent. Young Ben, desperate to prove himself, secretly wrote an anonymous article and slipped it under the print shop door at night. He had the immense satisfaction of hearing his brother and his intellectual friends read it, praise it, and speculate about which prominent writer had penned it. He kept the secret going, submitting more essays that all received acclaim. But when he finally revealed himself as the author, James's pride was crushed, and their relationship only deteriorated. At 17, Franklin had enough. He decided to run away. Knowing his father would side with James and stop him, he secretly sold some books, and with a friend's help, boarded a ship to New York. He arrived days later, 17 years old, nearly broke, with zero connections. Finding no work there, someone suggested he try Philadelphia, another 100 miles away. And that's how he ended up making that memorable entrance into the city, clutching those 3 ridiculous roles. He arrived exhausted, hungry, and completely alone. Yet he didn't stay adrift long. He had a skill. He approached the local printers, Andrew Bradford and Samuel Keimer. Keimer, though eccentric and not particularly talented, gave him work. This is where Franklin's true character started shining through. He wasn't just an employee, he was a problem solver. Keimer's printing press was ancient and broken, with only one worn-out set of type. Franklin, ever resourceful, fixed the press, and when they ran short of certain letters, he figured out how to cast new ones himself. He made ink. He was, as he put it, a factotum, someone who does everything. His work ethic was relentless, but he understood that skill and hard work alone weren't enough. He grasped the importance of community and connection. In 1727, he gathered a group of sharp acquaintances, clerks, surveyors, tradesmen who loved reading and discussing ideas, and formed a club called the Junto. It was dedicated to mutual improvement. They met every Friday evening to discuss questions on morals, politics, or natural philosophy. Each member had to write an essay every 3 months. The Junto's rules were designed for genuine inquiry, not ego battles. To prevent arguments, all expressions of absolute certainty or direct contradiction were forbidden, with small fines for violations. The Junto wasn't just a debate club. It was a network of friends helping each other succeed. It became Franklin's personal advisory board and the launching pad for many public projects. One early project sprouted from the club's love of books. Members often brought their own books to reference during discussions. This sparked an idea in Franklin. What if they pooled their books into a common library for everyone to use? The idea worked, but Franklin soon envisioned something bigger. He proposed a public subscription library, the first of its kind in America. He drafted plans and, leveraging his Junto network, gathered 50 subscribers who each paid 40 shillings up front and 10 shillings annually to maintain it. This became the mother of all American subscription libraries, transforming Philadelphia by making knowledge accessible not just to clergy or the wealthy, but to ordinary tradesmen and farmers. As his reputation grew, he eventually left Keimer and, partnering with Hugh Meredith, launched his own printing house. Franklin's shop was different, a hub of industry and reliability. He tells a wonderful story from this period. A new printing business was risky, and many established merchants expected them to fail. But one influential doctor defended him, saying, "The industry of that Franklin is superior to anything I ever saw. I see him still at work when I go home from the club, and he's at work again before his neighbors are out of bed." This visible dedication gave them credibility and trust. Franklin understood perception. He didn't just want to be hardworking, he wanted to be seen as hardworking. He dressed plainly. He never engaged in idle diversions like fishing or shooting. To show he wasn't above his business, he'd sometimes push the paper he purchased through the streets on a wheelbarrow. This performance of humility and dedication built a powerful reputation. People wanted to do business with this clearly dedicated young man. Soon he bought out his partner and became sole owner. He started a newspaper, the Pennsylvania Gazette, making it lively and engaging. He also began publishing Poor Richard's Almanac. Almanacs were among the most widely read publications in the colonies, and Franklin saw opportunity. He filled the calendar's little spaces with witty, memorable proverbs championing virtues like frugality, diligence, and prudence. Sayings like "a penny saved is a penny earned," or "early to bed, early to rise," makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise. Through Poor Richard, he became the moral instructor for a generation of Americans, shaping the very character of the new nation. Around this time, he corrected one of the great errata, or mistakes, of his life. He reconnected with Deborah Reed, the young woman who'd laughed at him on his first day in Philadelphia. She'd married another man in his absence, but he'd since abandoned her and fled the province in debt. Despite the complicated situation, their old affection rekindled, and in 1730 they married. She proved a wonderful partner, helping in the shop, folding and stitching pamphlets, and living as frugally as he did. Franklin's story so far shows incredible outward success. But the most fascinating part of his autobiography is the glimpse he gives us into his inner world, his ambitious, methodical project for achieving moral perfection. He writes, "I wished to live without committing any fault at any time. I would conquer all that either natural inclination, custom, or company might lead me into." A bold, almost audacious goal, but he didn't just wish for it, he engineered a system to achieve it. First, he identified 13 virtues he felt were necessary or desirable. 1. Temperance. Eat not to dullness, drink not to elevation. 2. Silence. Speak not but what may benefit others or yourself. Avoid trifling conversation. 3. Order. Let all your things have their places. Let each part of your business have its time. 4. Resolution. Resolve to perform what you ought. Perform without fail what you resolve. 5. Frugality. Make no expense but to do good to others or yourself. Waste nothing. 6. Industry. Lose no time. Be always employed in something useful. Cut off all unnecessary actions. 7. Sincerity. Use no hurtful deceit. Think innocently and justly, and if you speak, speak accordingly. 8. Justice. Wrong none, by doing injuries or omitting the benefits that are your duty. 9. Moderation. Avoid extremes. Forbear resenting injuries so much as you think they deserve. 10. Cleanliness. Tolerate no uncleanliness in body, clothes, or habitation. 11. Tranquility. Be not disturbed at trifles or at accidents common or unavoidable. 12. Chastity. Rarely use venery but for health or offspring. 13. Humility. Imitate Jesus and Socrates. He knew trying to master all 13 at once was impossible, so he decided to focus on just one virtue per week. He created a little book with a page for each virtue. Each page had 7 columns for the days of the week and 13 rows for the virtues. Every evening he'd review his day and mark with a black spot any fault committed against that day's virtue. In the first week, he'd focus entirely on temperance, trying to keep that line clear of spots while just noting failures in other areas. The next week, he'd focus on silence while continuing to practice temperance. He'd proceed through all 13 virtues, a full cycle taking 13 weeks. He hoped that by focusing his energy, he could build one good habit on top of another until they became second nature. He found the project much harder than imagined. He was surprised to find himself, in his own words, so much fuller of faults than I had imagined. The virtue of order gave him the most trouble. He wasn't naturally organized, and his good memory meant he didn't always feel the inconvenience of being disorganized. He struggled so much he nearly gave up. And here he tells a wonderful, deeply human story. He compares himself to a man who wanted to buy an axe from a smith and asked to have the whole surface as bright as the edge. The smith agreed, but only if the man would turn the grinding wheel. The man turned and turned, but the work was exhausting. He kept checking progress, tempted to just take the axe as it was, with some dark spots still on it. The smith said, turn on, we shall have it bright by and by. As yet, it is only speckled. But the man replied, yes, but I think I like a speckled axe best. This is the key to Franklin's entire philosophy of self-improvement. He realized perfection was unattainable. He never achieved his goal of a perfectly clean book, but he concluded that he was, by the endeavor, a better and happier man than I otherwise should have been if I had not attempted it. He learned to be content with a speckled axe. The value wasn't in arriving at perfection, but in the process of striving for it. This humility was, ironically, the last virtue he added to his list. A Quaker friend kindly told him he was often seen as proud and overbearing in conversation. So Franklin added humility, and made it a rule to avoid direct contradiction and never use words implying fixed opinions, like, quote, certainly, or undoubtedly. Instead, he'd say, I conceive, or it appears to me at present. He found this modest way of proposing ideas made people more receptive. He had fewer arguments and found it easier to persuade others. As his wealth and influence grew, he turned more attention to public affairs. His approach was always the same: identify a problem, propose a practical solution, and mobilize people to make it happen. When he noticed the city watch was inefficient and corrupt, he proposed a professional, tax-funded system. He wrote a paper on preventing house fires, which led to creating the Union Fire Company, Philadelphia's first. He helped found a hospital for the poor, cleverly drafting the funding bill so the government would match private donations, motivating everyone to give more. He drafted a proposal for an academy, which eventually became the University of Pennsylvania. In every case, he practiced the humility he preached. He'd present ideas not as his own, but as a scheme of a number of friends. By making himself smaller, the projects became bigger and more successful. His scientific curiosity also flourished. After seeing simple electrical experiments in Boston, he became fascinated. His house constantly filled with people coming to see these new wonders. Through his famous kite experiment, he proved lightning was a form of electricity, a discovery that made him famous across Europe. This led to his invention of the lightning rod, a practical device that saved countless homes from fire. He was elected to the Royal Society in London, England's most prestigious scientific body. As the colony's relationship with Great Britain grew tense, Franklin was increasingly called to serve as a statesman. He was a member of the Pennsylvania Assembly for years, consistently fighting against the proprietors, the Penn family who owned the colony, who wanted their vast estates exempt from taxes. His stubborn defense of people's rights eventually led the Assembly to send him to England in 1757 to plead their case directly to the Crown. The autobiography ends here, just as he's embarking on this crucial journey. He was 51 years old. He'd already lived a life more full and accomplished than a dozen ordinary people. But in many ways, his most famous chapter, as a diplomat and founding father who'd helped draft the Declaration of Independence and secure France's aid in the Revolutionary War, was just beginning. The book, as he wrote it, was a letter to his son, an attempt to pass down lessons learned. He writes that he emerged from poverty and obscurity to a state of affluence and some degree of reputation in the world, and that his descendants might like to know the conducing means he used, as they might find some of them fit to be imitated. And that's the enduring magic of this book. It's a story, yes, but it's also a generous gift. It's the story of a man who, through relentless self-discipline, deep love of learning, and profound commitment to serving others, literally invented himself. He shows us that our birth circumstances don't have to architect our future. We can be the architects. We can choose our virtues, build our skills, design our lives. And though we may never achieve perfection, we can all settle for a speckled axe and be better and happier for the effort. When you finish the final page of Benjamin Franklin's autobiography, you're left with a powerful, deeply optimistic feeling, the feeling that improvement is possible. Not just possible, but natural, achievable, and even enjoyable. In a world constantly telling us we're limited by our circumstances, Franklin's story is a resounding declaration that the greatest power we have is the power to shape ourselves. What strikes me most is how practical and human his approach is. His famous project for moral perfection could easily sound arrogant or naive. But the way he describes it overflows with humility and humor. He doesn't present himself as a saint. He shows us his struggles. His battle with the virtue of order is so relatable. Who among us hasn't made a grand plan to get organized, only to watch messy habits creep back in? But his conclusion, to embrace the speckled axe, is a profound lesson in self-compassion. He teaches us the goal isn't to become flawless, but to become a little better than yesterday. The effort, not the outcome, is where growth and happiness live. This book is also a masterclass in the power of small, consistent actions. Franklin didn't become a great writer overnight. He did it by rewriting one essay at a time. He didn't build a library with a giant grant. He did it by gathering 50 friends to contribute small sums. He didn't reform Philadelphia with a single grand decree. He did it by solving one problem at a time: the fire company, street sweeping, the city watch. His life is ultimate proof that small habits, compounded over time, lead to extraordinary results. And perhaps the most enduring lesson is his definition of a successful life. For Franklin, success wasn't just about personal wealth or fame, though he achieved both. It was about being useful. He invented the Franklin stove to warm rooms more efficiently and save fuel. He invented bifocals. He created the lightning rod. He refused to patent these inventions, believing that since we enjoy great advantages from the inventions of others, we should be glad of an opportunity to serve others by any invention of ours, and this we should do freely and generously. His greatest satisfaction came from projects benefiting his community, his beloved Philadelphia. So how can we apply his wisdom today? Here are a few simple actions inspired by his life. First, become the architect of your own education. Just like Franklin, who turned a print shop into his university, see the world as your classroom. Read books on subjects that spark your curiosity. Don't just consume information. Engage with it. Try his method. Read something interesting. Put it down. Then try explaining it in your own words. This simple act transforms passive learning into active knowledge. Second, pick one virtue to work on. Don't try changing your whole life at once. What's one small habit that, if you mastered it, would make a real difference? Maybe it's temperance in the form of less screen time. Maybe it's order in the form of making your bed every morning. Or maybe it's silence, learning to listen more than you speak. Pick one, focus on it for a week, and just observe. Don't aim for perfection, aim for a speckled axe. Third, start your own junto. You don't need a formal club, just gather one or two friends who also want to grow. Talk about big ideas. Share what you're learning. Hold each other accountable. As Franklin discovered, improvement is easier when you're not doing it alone. Simply discussing your goals with others makes them more real and achievable. That was a summary of the Autobiography of Benjamin Franklin. We've journeyed through the blueprint of a remarkable life today, but a summary is like looking at a map. Reading the book is taking the journey yourself. The real magic isn't just in knowing what Franklin did, but in experiencing his voice, his wit, and his profound wisdom firsthand. It's in those quiet moments, when a particular story or simple phrase resonates with a challenge you're facing right now. This summary is your guide to decide if this journey is one you want to take. If anything we've talked about today has sparked a fire in you, I encourage you to pick up a copy. Reading it isn't just learning about history. It's an experience that can genuinely change the way you see yourself and the life you're capable of building. Also, if you found this exploration valuable, I'd be grateful if you'd hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. That way, you won't miss our next journey into another life-changing book from the world's most successful minds. Let's keep learning and growing together.